How's it going, guys? What you're going to see today is another full-length sniping video that I've been recently putting out. And if you want to see more of these, obviously, I will gladly put up more of them, especially since I found that nice balance in 48 double tickets. Oh, and I kill Ty, and that nothing infuriates me more in this game than that right now. But that being said, striking that balance between the right amount of tickets playing in rush mode and actually being able to still get a lot of kills, because like I've said in previous videos, 64-man servers, at least if they're not double tickets, are way too quick. But striking that balance where they're actually, like say a 48-man double tickets, I found, which is this server, is the perfect mix between getting in a lot of action and actually being able to be good as an attacker or defender. This Shanghai Rush here, I've noticed, especially in these first set of MCOMs, and I'm sure everyone's experienced it that's played Rush, they always tend to sit on top of that building. And they either counter snipe or drop C4. But as you'll see here, for the most part, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get basically their bullets and C4 and any bit of suppression that they're doing off of us. And originally, and you might even be able to detect it in the background if you're really listening, because I've been trying to do more live commentaries as of late, trying to get into that. But this commentary didn't really turn out that great because the audio for me recording was too low, but I figured the gameplay's still pretty good, so I'm going to end up doing I'm going to do a commentary over it anyway. But the strategies that I was giving here are to stay behind cover when you're staying up in the buildings. Like here I'm using the dumpster, and you don't need something to be all-encompassing around you for it to be counted as cover. It's just using angles on your cover. When you look at me on this dumpster here, the only people that can possibly see me are the people to my left and right flanks as I'm staring up. And if you're taking them and look at, like, see, using this staircase here, as much as, yes, a lot of the guys looking down can absolutely see, and you'll see it. I take out two, and then this one guy here gets me because I was a little bit slow on the draw. But it was a nice shot on his part. But putting yourself in a position where all they'll see is maybe the scope glare and your head. Most people in the Battlefield community will not be able to counter snipe you. They just don't have that level of skill. So putting yourself in that situation, like proper cover and positioning, is probably the single most important part of Battlefield 4 success sniping. That and reading your minimap. Your minimap tells you absolutely everything. It tells you, well, as long as people spot, which ideally they should. And that's why you should always spot for everyone else. The minimap tells you everything. It tells you the layout of the map, as you can obviously see. It'll tell you where they are in proximity to you if teammates are spotting. It tells you, and like, look at that was a nice shot too. And that was a perfect example there of illustrating how and how not to use cover. I thought that it was fully hiding my body as I was staring up, but it was just that little bit of a gap there that leaves you exposed that ends up getting you killed. So make sure when you're picking your cover that every part of you is covered, except for the part where, say, you're staring up that has to be uncovered for you to actually attack. I do tend to go for revenge kills after I do, but sometimes it's not the best idea because he's going to expect you coming. But this is another example of how positioning works for me. Leaning up against the wall dramatically reduces the surface area of your body exposed, which will dramatically increase your chance of survival while also being able to output damage onto the enemy team. But of course, this is the worst potential aspect, because if someone's staring down, there's a really good chance that he's going to be able to see at least a bit of you anyway. But if, like in a case where, say, I'm going to be using the guardrail up here in a minute for cover, the only, like, if that guardrail was a little bit higher, the only aspect he'd even be able to see of me is my head. But on average, you could tell just staring at that guardrail that he could see probably chest and above. But that's because the rail is low. But basically that's the general tip I'm trying to give you in sort of a long-winded explanation. Putting yourself in a position and try to figure, and this is how I usually pick my cover. I try to understand, or at least conceptualize, what the enemy can see when I'm personally taking my cover. Like right now, I know that standing behind this stationary turret that he'd only be able to see me through the gaps in the turret. So if I'm quick enough to locate and shoot him as I was through the turret, then I'm at an extreme advantage. Right now where I am, only the people on the top roofs on both sides can see me, but the area that I just shot to the left, they can see every bit of me, so I better be quick if I'm picking a target. On the right, they'd only be able to see my head, so I better make sure again that I don't miss that aspect. I'd only be able to see his head in cover right now, and he knows it, but he could see every bit of me entirely exposed because I don't have cover there. So that is the general basic tip I'd like to stress, and I'd like to stress if you're only going to take one aspect out of the video, it's when you're picking your cover, make sure you have a good conceptual idea of what the enemy can see. If you think you're behind cover, but it's not definitively, like right here, like looking up, they'd be able to see pretty much every bit of my head from where and always take out enemy equipment if you can there. If you're staring directly, if I was to look up, like right now, they'd be able to see my head and my chest, and that's it. The group underneath me on the building behind me wouldn't be able to see me from that angle because they wouldn't be able to stare directly down at a 90-degree angle. And that's something that's already going through my head, and that's a routine process I go through in just about every single situation and cover that I choose. And if it comes, it's something that you should do with it, and it starts slow. That would be my tip for you, and it applies to everything too, not just recon. Start slow. Go into a situation, stop, and then figure, okay, what can they see if they were going to shoot at me right now? Can they see my head? Can they see my chest? Is my back exposed so that if someone comes around the corner, they can take my tags? And that should be going through your head at all times. Of course, you can't account for every single second you're on the battlefield in situations, especially in open maps. But in this situation, everything except for my head is exposed in that situation there. So I was at the extreme advantage. But going down here with a pistol is going down the staircase. I would be entirely exposed. So that was a bit of a risk. But sometimes you got to take the risks. But I wish the live commentary went through because all of the tips I'm giving you here in terms of positioning all would be helpful. I did allude to minimap a bit, and if you want to see another video of positioning where I break down specific points, this was sort of on the fly. But if you'd like to see a specific video breakdown of positioning and a specific video breakdown of minimap awareness through another, say, sort of live commentaries type video where I'm giving a recon or assault tip breakdown video, I will do it. But that's the basic tip. If to sum up the basic tip for positioning, try to imagine what the enemy would see when you're cause see, I'm standing back from the guardrail when I'm sniping there. I'm not directly to it, and that reduces my surface area. He'd only be able to see my head. But if I went up directly to the guardrail, he'd probably be able to see my entire chest as well. So angles of where you're positioning yourself are just as important as what you actually choose to use as cover. But I hope you enjoyed that. This was a live commentary gone awry, but the video play was pretty good. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.
Not bad, 17-3. No real tips, that was the first one.